I'm Matt Kleinschmidt, and I'm a partial owner of Kleinschmidt Logging LLC.
What do I do out here? I forward wood out most of the time. I started when I was probably 3 years old, riding on top of the horse, back and forth in the woods. And you pull out one or two trees at a time. And then you had somebody out in the landing, they cut it up into 8-foot lengths. And then they had to pile it by hand. And you just went back and forth with the horse, dragged it out. About 2 cords a day was a good day, 2-3 cords. That's one bunk on here compared to what we do now. Trails with the horse was like a deer trail. And the first time we got the first pole skidder out there, I was wondering how to get it into the woods. And all you do now is you run over all the small trees in front of you. And with that, with a horse, you go around them trees. And that's the difference between years ago. The horse would look immaculate with all the little stuff that was left because you went around all that. And then when the pole skidders come involved, it was completely different. It was kind of with nothing left standing. And then the counties and the state found out that it regenerated growth faster if it was all clear cut. So they went to a lot of clear cut areas and wanted that smaller stuff knocked down. It was in the way. I grew up with my dad that loved horses. So the cat never got used very much besides pushing roads and sitting there. When I got probably 16, 17 years old, I talked him into putting a little jammer on the back of it, which was the cable jammer, which you had to wrap the trees around the cable, and then you winched them up onto the trailer that you're pulling. And by that time the cat was kind of wore out, so the tracks would fall off. So it wasn't a lot of fun back using the cat. But a lot of people did do that because that was the biggest thing out there at that time before the pole skidder started in the middle 60s.
When my dad was probably 20 years old, maybe, he would be about 21. He bought a Franklin cable skidder from a Franklin heavy equipment dealer in Prentice, Wisconsin. A year after that, bought another one. So they had 2, and then didn't cut with horses anymore after that. And then my dad just worked in the woods for about 12 years until 1983. And the wood market became pretty unstable in the early 1980s, so he took a job working at Owens, Illinois at the paper mill, but still had the equipment. I was born in 1975, and in 1985, when I was about 10, he still had the equipment, and he still cut wood part-time. And I started going out in the woods with him and learning how to run the equipment and do a couple things in that capacity. And I think I was about 12 or 13 years old. And my dad said, "You're coming out with me all summer long." And so when he wasn't working at the paper mill, he was on shift work. When he wasn't working at the paper mill, I went out in the woods with him, and all I did was drive skidder. So I just pulled trees out of the woods, pulled them up to the landing, and I peeled popple with a skidder in the early part of summer, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed spending time in the woods. I enjoyed being outside. I enjoyed the challenge of it, so I just kept doing it. And when I was in high school, I started to run a chainsaw. Learned a lot of things about the operation of the business, how the business worked. and then realized that it was a good way to supplement some of the money that I needed to eventually go to college. And so in 1994, I graduated from high school, went to Eau Claire, and cut wood in the summertime and in the wintertime to help pay for school. And so the business stayed about like that until I don't know, probably 2003, 2004, not long after I got married. We turned the business into an LLC, just to have some protection between the business and my life, my income as a teacher. And so 2003, 2004, I'd have to look at the date, became an LLC. And we just started to expand the business after that. I took more of a role in the financial part of the business, and kind of expanded our equipment a little bit. So today, or in 2015, we bought our first Ponzi harvester. We had another harvester before then. Got into working with Ponzi in about 2015, and had a used harvester that we had for a couple years. We ended up buying a newer H7 harvester head and Ponzi Ergo in 2019, and then this summer in 2023, in about a month, we're going to be taking possession of our first brand new piece of equipment. We ordered a Ponzi elk forwarder from Finland, and that's supposed to be delivered here in about a month. And so we're pretty excited to see that. So the business has grown steadily, basically, since for my whole life, from just expanding it from cutting with chainsaws and that kind of stuff, all the way through. Now we're fully mechanical, fully mechanized. We don't hardly cut anything by hand except for some saw timber. So it's grown quite a bit. It's changed quite a bit over the course of my lifetime. Expanded to quite a few different ways of doing things. So.
We can cut 100 and some cords a day and forward out probably half of that, roughly. At 71 years old, I don't think I'd be out here with the horse stumbling around picking up trees compared to sitting in there with the air conditioning, the heat, the radio going, and little controls to run the machine. This is more demanding to come out and do it and get production done. Back then it was more slacked. Everything was slower. You did everything slower, but there was more physical work with it.
The markets, well, first of all, from a production standpoint, the markets are totally different than what they were 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. You could cut wood and you could sell it by hand cutting, by cutting, 1 or 2 loads a week. When I was in high school, if I went out in the woods and I cut 5 cords on a day, that was pretty average. That was a pretty average day. That's cutting down a tree, limbing a tree, dragging it out of the woods, pushing it up into a pile, cutting it up into 8-foot sticks. And at that time, you could sell the whole tree. You could sell it from the butt of the tree all the way up to the top of the tree. You could sell it all to the same mill. You were limited basically only in how much you could produce. What's happened to the market since then is there are fewer number of people actually in the woods. There's fewer number of cutters in the woods, but the production has probably increased. I would say it's increased in over that time because things are more mechanical. Things are much faster. And what it's done is allowed us to take, by going mechanized, it's allowed us to take that tree and sort out the saw timber, sort out the boltwood, and sort out the pulpwood, and send different parts of the tree to different markets to try to maximize our profit. That has totally changed from where I was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, you sold the whole tree to one mill, and is basically what you did because you didn't have the ability to sort things out. You didn't have the time and whatever it is. So you cut, 5 cords a day. That takes you 2 or 3 days to cut to cut that load of wood. Now on a good day, I'm cutting 100 cords a day, putting 100 cords of wood on the ground in a day. That's 7 loads of wood in a day. So that part has totally changed the wood, the production part of the timber industry. So there's fewer people, there's more machines, there's more production. Now the cost of everything's gone up. Machines are more expensive. Upkeep's more expensive. All that kind of stuff. As far as the safety component, there's a number of things. Like it's a totally different situation, safety-wise, in the woods now than what it was 10 to 15 years ago. When I was in college, I snapped a tree into my leg, tore the MCL in my knee, had meniscus damage to my knee that shut me down for quite a while. When Katie, Nico's mom, was pregnant with Nico, I was hit in the head with a tree. Tree broke off about 30 feet up in the air, and the top 25 feet of the tree fell down. I was working too fast, not paying attention, hit me on the helmet, knocked me unconscious, broke my hard hat, split my hard hat in half. That saved my life. So now the danger component of things now is probably less of the tree, like the contact with the tree. The danger now is probably more mechanical. Getting in the wrong spot next to a machine, or hydraulic injuries. There's stories every year about guys that get injured from high pressure hoses breaking, things like that. Chain shot is a big deal in the industry. When the chain on a harvester breaks, a piece of that chain will come flying out, and there have been all kinds of studies that have shown that the piece of the chain that breaks off in the harvester head comes flying back toward the cab, is coming back at the operator at the same velocity as a .22 shell. So there's people that have died from that, gone right through the glass of the window, hit people in the chest and killed them. So it's much more mechanical injuries now, I would say, than it is contact with a tree. There's still things like falling, tripping in the woods. I mean, all that kind of stuff is still there. But because everything is mechanical, because you're sitting in a cab all day, the cabs are super protected. They're all designed specifically to withstand rollovers or withstand trees falling on the harvester or the forwarder, things like that. So that's totally different. But it's the safety, the danger is still there. It's just a little different than what it's been in the past.
Well, I converted a pole skidder into with a loader on it, and it was pretty slow, but it was, at that time, it was pretty feasible to move wood around and sort it out. And you could carry it to where it was always dry, so a truck could haul it. And that's basically what it was made for. We upgraded and got a bigger carrying machine, heavier one, which was good. And then we went to a little bit lighter machine, a John Deere, and they were both all single bunks. And after that, then we went to this one here. This is twice as much what we could haul before. Anything from years ago compared to nowadays, it's like old antique cars to vehicles you ride in now. That's how much it's improved.
The the mental strain is definitely different than what it was a generation ago. It was physically more demanding of somebody 20 years ago than what it is now. I'm not sure that I could right now go back and cut the 5 cords or 10 cords or whatever it is a day that I did 20 years ago physically. Now, part of that is because I sit in a cab all day and I'm not out doing that. So I'm definitely not in the same shape that I was 20 years ago. But the mental strain is there's a lot more difficult. There's a lot more to think about. There's a lot more things you have to pay attention to. So you're constantly moving between the operation of the machine and making sure that you're looking at the gauges and the all the stuff to make the machine run, and also setting up the stuff that you're producing so that it can be picked up by the forwarder as quickly and as efficiently as possible to get that product out to the landing so that the truck has access to it to take to the mill. So when you get to a tree or you get to a stand of trees that you're cutting, you have to separate them all by species first of all, and then within the species you're separating them between log products, which is anything that's 10 inches or over, bolt products, which is anything that's 7, 8, or 9 inches, and then pulp products, which is anything under that. And you have to realize what you're making. What mill are you making something for? There was for quite a while we were selling red pine. We were cutting red pine wood that was being taken to a sawmill to be turned into fence posts. And so the sawmill wanted 7 footers, 8 footers, 10 footers, 14 footers, and 24 footers. And so you had to cut that tree down, and then you had to decide what products could you make out of that tree and have different things sorted out in different ways so that we could separate all that stuff out on the landing to create different loads of wood to take to this mill. And so you're constantly evaluating different things. Now that's mentally much more stressful. Physically, it's much more endurance. Getting up at midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning and driving up the wood so that you're operating and you're producing wood by 3 o'clock in the morning is not uncommon. That's something that we've done quite frequently in the wintertime, especially working with lights on the machines and that kind of stuff. And then now there's a lot more upkeep on machines. There's a lot more maintenance. There's a lot more you're checking fluids and you're checking making sure that you're running the right bar oil, and you're stocked up on chains and harvester bars and the different things that you need in order to keep the machine operational, and greasing and all the lubrication that goes into everything and all that stuff. I mean, it's all much more dependent on a lot of other variables to produce that tree, as opposed to, does your chainsaw run? Can you jump in the skidder? Can you get that going in the morning? You sleep all night. You jump in the skidder in the morning. You leave at dark because you don't have lights on any of the equipment. That's all you did. And now there's a lot more mental strain on things, a lot less physical strain on things than there used to be. I miss the days of hand cutting because it was simpler. It was easy, from a mental standpoint. And there was still pressure. There's still pressure to produce things. You had to put in the time. You had to put in the effort. You had to put in the work to do it, but I miss the the contact with the outside. I'm not outside. I'm just in a cab, listening to the radio or listening to some music or a podcast or whatever I'm listening to, listening to the motor run. Cutting by hand. Yeah, you heard the chainsaw running, in the machine with you, but you felt the breeze, you felt the warmth, you felt the cold, when it was, 5 or 10 degrees outside, you felt that, and, you felt your hands get cold, and, I miss that stuff. I miss the physical contact with the environment that I grew up with. I don't have that anymore on a daily basis. You have that when you jump out of the cab to go change a chain or, fuel up or whatever it is. But, you throw on a jacket, you jump outside, you jump back in the cab's warm, take the jacket off, pick up your cup of coffee and, sit there and go back to work. So my dad is 72. He's the forwarder operator. Like I said, we're taking delivery of a brand new Ponzi elk in about a month. I can see myself continuing to do this part-time when I'm not teaching or coaching, probably for another 10 years. At that time, I'll be 57. My goal has always been to teach until I retire and then go out in the woods full-time. What does that look like? I couldn't tell you. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know how many more years my dad has left in the woods. But I know that if he's able to, he will stay in the woods as long as he can. I mean, that's the thing for him that he grew up with. It's the thing that I grew up with. I'm hoping that at some point there's a possibility that Nico, you and Philip have an opportunity to do something along those lines, to do something with come out in the woods, and even if it's just part-time or whatever you choose to do, I think that would that'd be interesting. That's what's really going to depend on what happens with the business going forward. Is this a generational thing that keeps passed on? There's a lot of variables there, to make that happen. It definitely is a commitment, though. And it's something that you have to want to do, and you have to want to do it not because you like or because of a financial reason. You have to do it because you like that job. And if you like that job, if you like that kind of work and you like that kind of challenge, then I think that's something that the future could hold, can continue within the family. If not, that's totally realistic too. So we'll see.